What I'm about to show you is arguably the biggest story in the world right now, in my opinion, but it's being totally ignored by the mainstream media. Of course it is. They don't want you to know about it because it will upend the global world order. I'm going to show you all of the new data and the info in a minute. But first, the US just announced they're getting ready for war with China and Russia simultaneously, because we can't just do one without the other, right? See, this is what happens when people start to lose power. They get very dangerous, and the U.S. is quickly losing power. This week, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced their new 2024 military budget, which aims directly at China. And get this is unbelievable. It includes a 40% increase in spending to attack China. The Pentagon recently said China is, quote, the most comprehensive and serious challenge to the U.S. national security strategy. Here's Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin pushing for this new China war funding.
This is a strategy-driven budget and one driven by the seriousness of our strategic competition with the People's Republic of China. This budget will help us continue to implement our 2022 National Defense Strategy and the President's National Security Strategy.
So the U.S. national security is under attack because China is becoming an economic superpower. They want you to believe that your house and your backyard are going to have Chinese soldiers in it very soon. This is how they will scare you. Better watch out if you're grilling in your backyard barbecue because some Chinese soldiers are about to steal your hot dogs. They really want you to be scared. They're doing a good job of it.
In order to protect the American people, readiness now and readiness in the future through modernization is our number one priority. And there is no other number one. Right now, the international system is under stress. For the first time in our nation's history, the United States is facing two major nuclear powers whose vital national security interests are in competition with the United States.
They are hoping that you'll be scared, so you'll want to go to war to protect your hot dogs or your hamburgers. Even Governor Ron DeSantis is pushing this threat narrative, playing on the fear of a Chinese attack.
My view in terms of U.S. national security is that our number one threat by far is China and the CCP. They're strong militarily, they're strong economically, they've got the largest industrial base in human history, and they have ambitions.
So everyone is on board with this threat, and we need to spend billions more in this new budget to protect you. That's what they're telling you. They're calling it their Pacific Deterrence Initiative. That's the name of it. Deterrence. That's a good one. We're going to deter China and Russia by provoking them in their freaking backyards. The United States this week announced 4 new military bases will be built in the Philippines. The goal of these bases is for war with China. That brings the total number of U.S. military bases to 754 worldwide. Can you imagine? The United States has 754 military bases around the world. Just wrap your heads around that for a moment. But it's all just to deter them. They think we're stupid. The Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Zhang warned earlier this month that if the U.S. doesn't change its course on its military buildup in the Asia-Pacific and other policies aimed at China, it will lead to conflict and confrontation. So Washington has a death wish, and they're going to get us all killed if they don't want to back off. But they won't because of what I'm about to show you, and this is the most important part. So the United States just announced it's getting ready for war with China and Putin at the same time for a very important reason. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin are about to completely alter the international power structure and the monetary system. This is why they're getting ready for war. No other reason. The biggest story in the world happened this week in Moscow, and your mainstream media ignored it. This week, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin signed 14 different documents in their face-to-face meeting. The biggest had to do with trade and currency. It's perhaps the biggest story in the world right now, but again, the U.S. media was obsessed with something else.
He could be days away from becoming the first former president to be indicted.
Donald Trump is under multiple criminal inquiries.
If he's about to be arrested, it almost certainly means he's going to be indicted.
The media wants you distracted from the U.S. banking crisis and the decline of the U.S. dollar. Can you imagine? Probably the most important story in the world happened this week, and it almost got no attention. So let me know in the comments if your newscasts in your local markets covered this story. Probably not. So let's give it some real attention right now and give you the most important highlights.
Get accurate, reliable information, in our media landscape today. It's great to have a straight shooter like our guest, Colonel Douglas McGregor. How you doing, sir?
Great, David. Great.
Well, I want to go through a few of the different stories that are emerging from the conflict. You see, reports. I had a talk with Larry Johnson earlier this week, and he was talking about how the Bakhmut narrative has flipped. It was said to be a very strategically important city in the media and the Western media, and now they've changed to say it's not that big of a deal now that it looks like it's pretty much encircled by Russian forces. What's the truth about Bakhmut? I'm hearing that some of the soldiers in Ukraine are, kind of having a lot of weariness about continuing to try to hold their positions in Bakhmut.
Well, Bakhmut has turned into a major bloodbath. We now think we're up over 200,000 Ukrainian dead, and thousands of Ukrainian soldiers have died in this town of Bakhmut. And Larry Johnson's right. Everyone said that this was terribly important for months, and then suddenly said, well, this is not that big a deal. In truth, it's a very important city. Understanding once again the terrain and the fact that at least for months at a time, you are limited to road travel. The road network in and around Bakhmut is enormously important. And it leads also to railheads, which means that it's a logistical hub. And once this falls, it's going to be very difficult for the rest of the defensive network that runs for hundreds of miles across southern Ukraine to hold together. The other thing is that Zelensky has been moving troops that had been set aside for use in the future as counterattack forces and taken them and thrown them into the Bakhmut bloodbath. With the result, they've taken far, far more casualties. Remember, this Bakhmut is the centerpiece for what I would call this World War I style engagement. It's almost like Verdun, where you have tens of thousands of troops on both sides, and the group on one side has more artillery than the other. I mean, for every one gun the Ukrainians have, the Russians have at least 10. And in the case of Bakhmut over the last couple of weeks, the Ukrainians have simply run out of both guns and ammunition, so they haven't been able to support their troops. Without friendly artillery support, they're simply being destroyed, ground into bits. And many, many Ukrainian soldiers are saying, this is it. We can't survive this. We've got to get out of here. And even though Zelensky's generals have urged him repeatedly, pull the troops out because we'll need them to fight again down the line, he has refused to do so. Now I think Ukrainian soldiers in numbers, who knows how many, are simply falling back on their own, hoping to survive and escape the what they call the cauldron that's being created inside Bakhmut.
Les pregunto, amigos de Sin Mentiras, y si los coreanos del norte le meten un petardazo a los amiguitos gringos, es decir, si le meten un intercontinental de la noche a la mañana, pregunto, porque allí las tensiones siguen subiendo. Fíjate que Corea del Norte acaba de transmitir a los medios de comunicación que solamente en menos de 24 horas en un día lograron la firma de más de 800,000 voluntarios que están listos para regresar al ejército y enfrentar a los amiguitos del norte. 800,000 voluntarios. Corea del Norte, como saben todos ustedes, posee uno de los ejércitos más grandes que hay desde el punto de vista de la cantidad de los combatientes. Pero no solamente ello, sino también que en las últimas semanas los norcoreanos han venido haciendo pruebas de misiles balísticos. Hoy precisamente acaban de lanzar uno en el mar de Japón. Japón ha protestado diciendo que pone en peligro su seguridad para ellos y para el resto del mundo. Y los norcoreanos simplemente están diciendo que mientras los gringos y los coreanos del sur estén planificando y estén haciendo ejercicios y maniobras del 13 al 23 de marzo, del 13 ya comenzaron al 23 de marzo, eso se llaman ejercicios Freedom Shield, que son ejercicios de entrenamiento, de maniobra, de intercambio, en el cual los gringos están metidos allí hasta la sopa. Bueno, los norcoreanos han dicho que mientras estén esos ejercicios, que son una provocación, que quieren armar una confrontación nuclear, ellos van a estar haciendo las pruebas y sus defensas estratégicas están prestas, listas, ya alertas ante cualquier emergencia o ante cualquier orden. Con lo cual, esto pone en evidencia o pone de relieve que efectivamente los norcoreanos están llegando a un punto de no retorno y a un punto en el cual están ya cansados de las provocaciones de los amiguitos del norte que siguen con los coreanos del sur haciendo ejercicios, trayendo entrenadores, trayendo equipamiento para provocar de alguna manera la reacción que la ha tenido ya de los coreanos del norte. Vamos a esperar cómo esto termina de desarrollarse. Y otra cosa, cada día la retórica por parte de los norcoreanos sube.
El 9º día de disturbios en Francia, desatados por la polémica reforma de pensiones del gobierno de Emmanuel Macron, la alcaldesa socialista de la ciudad capital, París, prometió trabajar para la revocación de esa iniciativa y llamó a un restablecimiento del diálogo.
Ahora bien, si queremos calmar el país, hay muchas opciones para salir de esa situación. Hay que restablecer el diálogo. Y el diálogo no se puede restablecer ignorando una situación explosiva y muy caótica en todas partes.
De que el presidente Emmanuel Macron utilizara la figura del artículo 49 de la tercera constitución bonapartista de 1958, utilizando este mecanismo para, de alguna manera, por decreto, sacar adelante la reforma pensional. Utilizando esta figura constitucional, esta es la 100ª vez que se utiliza, es decir, 100 veces se ha utilizado el artículo 49 para este tipo de acciones del Ejecutivo, pero se ha encontrado con una gran resistencia en las calles. Estamos viviendo la nueva revolución francesa y esa nueva revolución francesa que estamos viviendo en este momento está en las calles, lo hemos visto, algunas fuentes oficiales hablan de un poco más de 1 millón de manifestantes, pero los sindicatos dicen que son más de 3 millones de personas las que están en las calles, y es que se han unido las 8 centrales sindicales y se unen con justa razón. Estamos con una creciente inflación en Francia, el 15% ha subido la inflación en los alimentos, también se ha subido en un 7.5% la inflación a nivel general en el país y en general en toda Europa está creciendo la inflación. El lunes inicia la huelga en Alemania precisamente por el problema de la inflación, y lo que tenemos hoy acá en Francia es ese gran enfrentamiento de esos sindicatos, de las 8 centrales de los sindicatos de Francia principales y en las calles haciendo presión al Ejecutivo.
El presidente Emmanuel Macron se encuentra en medio de un terrible escándalo. Ya era muy controversial, había ocasionado molestia a los ciudadanos y muchos habían salido a manifestarse en los últimos días ya, porque paulatinamente estas manifestaciones no se detienen, sobre todo después de que se aprobara gracias a un decretazo por parte de Emmanuel Macron y la primer ministra de este país. Pero independientemente de eso, ahora surge un nuevo problema. Y es que mientras estos miles de ciudadanos protestan en las calles, millones, porque se tiene registrado aproximadamente que casi 4 millones de ciudadanos se manifestaron en las últimas 24 horas en las calles de París en contra de esa reforma. Y el mandatario ha sido ahora captado en cámara, en vivo, quitándose un artículo, un posible reloj de lujo, que estaría evaluado, de acuerdo con varios expertos que estuvieron revisando las imágenes, en aproximadamente poco más de 80,000 euros. Aproximado casi $86,000 durante una entrevista.